So thank you again for coming out on this very miserable evening. We really appreciate it. I'm Beki. I'm a PhD student on the project, and my PhD is largely focusing on pair bonds in jackdaws. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about couples of jackdaws, and also some bad behaviour that goes on within those couples. Oh, wrong way. Sorry. Okay. So first of all, I'm just going to start off with a bit of an introduction to monogamy. Everyone here is pretty familiar with monogamy. Most human societies are monogamous. But just in case anyone's unfamiliar with the definition, it's where one individual exclusively pairs with another individual. And humans aren't the only mammals that do this. Also, for example, gibbons are monogamous, and some species of voles are surprisingly also monogamous. But it is pretty unusual in mammals to be monogamous. Less than 10% of mammalian species are. Contrast this to birds, where 90% of bird species are monogamous. So almost all of those birds that you'll see in your garden or when you're out and about are monogamous species. But I'm talking about social monogamy here, which is where one individual exclusively partners with another individual, but it's not necessarily faithful to that partner. So of all the birds that are monogamous, 85% of monogamous songbirds are not faithful to their partner. So the vast majority of birds that you see in your garden, yes, they have a partner and they're monogamous with that partner, but they are also mating with other individuals on the side. So for example, in great tits, there's a 50% chance that any single great tit that you see comes from a brood with multiple fathers. And if you flip that on its head, you've got any adult male great tit that you see raising offspring that aren't necessarily his. And in many cases it seems that they're not aware of which offspring are and which offspring are not their own. Contrast this with jackdaws, who are thought to be almost fully faithful birds. So they're pretty unique in this sense, and they're also quite unique in the sense that they form long-term pair bonds. So almost all of the birds that I've just shown you, or the birds that you see out and about or in your gardens, they form pair bonds that last a year or maybe a few years, but they'll switch partners, which would be akin to a husband switching his wife every year or a wife switching their husband every year. But jackdaws don't do this. So they'll choose their partner when they're young, and then they form lifelong pair bonds. And not only this, but they stay with their partner pretty much every single day throughout the year. So many pair bonding birds will just stay with their partner during the breeding season, but jackdaws will see their partner pretty much every day. And sometimes these pair bonds can last for up to a decade or more. So they're really investing in this other individual. And you might be asking, well, how is this related to cognition, which Alex was just talking about, is what the group is looking at, cognition in jackdaws. Well, there's this idea that pair bondedness between individuals and cooperating and coordinating with another individual is related to being clever and having a big brain. So maybe cooperating, coordinating with another individual throughout your life actually requires having a big brain. But this hasn't been looked into in a lot of detail, and part of that is because it requires quantifying and measuring a pair bond or a relationship. And that itself is pretty difficult. So one of the questions I'm asking in my PhD is how can we measure the strength of relationships? And that's what I'm going to tell you about now. So I essentially measure the strength of jackdaw relationships by setting up a CCTV state and putting CCTV cameras into their nest boxes and then spying on them throughout the breeding season. So this is the view that we get from cameras that we put inside these boxes. And you can see here the female on the right, she's incubating her eggs, and the male on the left looking very suspiciously up at the camera. So I record thousands of hours of video, and then I recruit a team of undergraduate students every year who are interested in behavioral ecology and research methods, and I train them to code these videos. So essentially we watch all of this video data, we turn it into code, and then we number crunch and do statistics on those numbers, and then we can see the patterns and processes of what is going on within these pairs. So I'm going to show you an example now of some of these pair bond behaviors. This first one is allopreening. You might have heard of allogrooming or grooming in primates. This is the bird version of that. So this is the male on the right preening the female who's incubating eggs at the moment. This next one is contact behaviour. This is essentially just when the birds are hanging out together. So the female needs to be in the nest box, she's incubating eggs, but the male does not need to be there. He could be anywhere. He could be off hanging out with other birds or foraging, but he's actively choosing to be in the box with the female. And this last one is chatter. This is a call that we're not entirely sure of the function of, but we found that pairs that chatter more also invest more in other pair bond other pair bond behaviours. So it's not a noise you would usually associate with jackdaws, probably. So using all of this data, what have we found out about jackdaw pair bonds? Well, first of all, some pairs are very strongly bonded. They spend a lot of time together. They invest a lot in these bonding behaviours. I'm sure we all know couples like this as humans who spend loads of time together and can't keep their hands off each other. Some jackdaw pairs are like this. But other jackdaw pairs are not, and again, I'm sure we know some human couples like this. You don't even know they're a couple because you never see them acting that way with each other, and then you're really surprised when you find out they are. Same with jackdaws. So sometimes they just don't spend that much time together. The male will come into the nest box, do what he needs to do, and then leave as soon as he can. So now I'm asking whether or not this variation relates to the number of offspring that these birds have, or if it maybe influences the number of friendships that they form outside of their pair bond. So these are questions that I'm now addressing. I also ran an experiment last field season where I found out that individuals appear to be attentive to the stress state of their partner. So to put this into a human scenario, this would be like an individual, say yourself, coming home to a partner and your partner's really stressed out but they don't tell you that they're stressed, and you respond with a different kind of behaviour than you would if they were not stressed. So you change your behaviour in response to their stress even if they don't tell you. And I found that this happens in jackdaws. So if a male comes back to the box and the female has been stressed and he's unaware that she has been stressed previously, he will behave differently in response to her stress relative to if she wasn't stressed, which is quite a cool thing to know that these birds are capable of doing. But that's enough of the lovey-dovey stuff. Now onto the bad behaviour. So are jackdaws always faithful? Well, I'm sure you probably guessed from the title of this talk that the answer is no. They are not faithful. So what I'm going to show you here is, it's quite rare to see this. So for the most part, it seems that they do act very monogamously, but we have video footage of things not quite going to plan. So here we've got a female laying on her eggs, and you're going to see another bird coming in, and we can identify this bird from his colouring combination. We know that he is not her partner. He's a neighbour who has his own partner, and they have their own eggs. And he's going to come in and try to mate with this female. And I have to warn you before I play it that it sounds very distressing, but the noise they're making is actually a very normal jackdaw mating noise. The males seem to really want to show off what they're doing, so. Oh.
Censored.
Anyway, that's enough of that. We don't need to watch that for too long. So, partnered males may sneak into their neighbours' boxes and mate with poor, unsuspecting females. But like I said, this is quite unusual to see. Something else that's quite unusual to see, and actually we've only seen it here in Stithians, is a three-way relationship. So, what we've seen, actually Gil noticed over the last few years that there was this normal breeding pair, a male and a female, and a female follower seemed to be associated with this pair. So this pair would just be going about their normal business, and this female was just following them around, and we weren't really sure what she was doing. And then this breeding season, we set up a video camera inside the box, and we saw that this female, who we nicknamed the third wheel, came in and laid her own eggs in the box. So the established female doesn't seem super happy about this development. And I'm going to show you a video clip now of the third wheel coming into the box while the established female who owns that box is already inside. And you will see that she's not very happy about what's going on. So here the established female, she's poking her head out of the hole, which is at the bottom left of this clip. hear some commotion, and then the third wheel comes in. And then she goes on to lay some eggs in there. And what we don't know is whether or not these eggs are fathered by the established female's partner. So what I've done is I've extracted DNA from all of the chicks that hatched in that box and just sent them off for sequencing, and in a few weeks' time I'll be able to see whether or not all of those chicks were fathered by this one male, in which case this would be very strong evidence that jackdaws are not always as monogamous as thought. So to sum up, jackdaw relationships are not exactly straightforward. Pairs bond strongly and they bond for life, but some bonds are much stronger than others. Pairs are not always faithful, or indeed always pairs. So I'm just going to end with this. You'll see jackdaws hanging around in pairs. If you see one, you'll often see its partner. So next time you see them, you can just think about the length and complexity of the bond they share. It's quite unusual to see wild animals that have this strong bond that lasts so long. So it's a cool thing to think about, and you can also think about the drama that they may or may not be going through. So on to